The world held its breath as flames threatened to swallow the most dangerous waterway on Earth. For hours, military radar screens glowed red across the Middle East. Warships sliced through dark waters under combat alert. Fighter jets roared above the Persian Gulf, while nervous oil markets braced for catastrophe. Then came the message from Washington that stunned allies, terrified investors, and sent shockwaves through global intelligence circles. The ceasefire is not over. Those 6 words, delivered by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, landed like a thunderclap after reports that Iranian forces had launched repeated attacks linked to U.S. operations near the Strait of Hormuz. Around the world, analysts immediately began asking the same question. If missiles are flying and naval forces are exchanging fire, how can there still be a ceasefire? Behind the scenes, officials inside, the White House and Pentagon are now racing to prevent a regional explosion that could ignite the entire Middle East. But beneath the public statements and carefully chosen language lies a far darker reality, one involving secret military planning, economic panic, naval brinkmanship, and a growing fear that the next miscalculation could unleash a conflict unlike anything seen in decades. Because this is no ordinary standoff. The Strait of Hormuz is the beating heart of global energy. Roughly a fifth of the world's oil passes through that narrow corridor of water. If it closes, economies tremble, fuel prices explode, governments panic. And now, according to Pentagon officials, American warships are once again escorting vessels through waters where Iranian forces have allegedly been testing U.S. resolve. The operation has a name: Project Freedom. Officials insist it is defensive, temporary, limited, but critics are asking a terrifying question. Is this the beginning of a larger war hidden behind softer language? During a tense Pentagon briefing, Hegseth attempted to draw a hard line between 2 separate military efforts. One mission, he explained, focuses on protecting commercial shipping and reopening maritime traffic. The other, reportedly called Project Epic Fury, involves broader pressure on Iran itself. To the Pentagon, the distinction is crystal clear. To the rest of the world, it sounds like a semantic game being played in the middle of an armed confrontation. Because while Washington insists diplomacy remains alive, explosions and military maneuvers tell a different story. Iranian-linked attacks have already rattled the region. U.S. allies have reportedly been targeted. Warships remain on high alert. Surveillance aircraft circle constantly above the Gulf. Every radar ping now carries the possibility of escalation, and still, officials say the ceasefire remains intact. That contradiction is exactly what has intelligence experts deeply concerned, according to sources close to the administration. President Donald Trump is determined to avoid a full-scale regional war while simultaneously projecting overwhelming military dominance. The strategy appears designed to corner Iran economically and militarily, without crossing the line into outright invasion. But history has shown how quickly limited operations spiral out of control. One missile, one drone strike, one naval collision. That is all it could take. What makes this moment even more dangerous is the psychological battle unfolding beneath the military one. Both sides appear desperate to project strength while avoiding the appearance of weakness. Neither Washington nor Tehran wants to blink first, and that creates a deadly environment where escalation becomes almost automatic. During the CNN discussion, retired Lieutenant General Sam Mundy revealed how massive the American operation has become behind closed doors. According to him, U.S. Central Command has likely spent weeks repositioning forces, rehearsing scenarios, and constructing what amounts to a floating shield across the Strait of Hormuz. Destroyers, strike aircraft, reconnaissance systems, helicopters, layered missile defense. A multi-domain dome of protection designed to keep shipping lanes open under threat of attack. But military experts know something the public often forgets. No defense system is perfect. Not in waters this narrow, not against swarming fast boats, not against anti-ship missiles hidden along the Iranian coastline. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most difficult naval environments on Earth. The channel is tight, traffic is dense, tensions are suffocating. In such conditions, seconds matter. Decisions become life or death almost instantly. And according to analysts, Iran understands that perfectly. CNN Global Affairs analyst Kim Dozier warned that Tehran may feel compelled to challenge American operations directly. The reason is brutally simple. If Iran allows U.S. naval escorts to operate freely without resistance, it risks appearing weak both domestically and internationally. That is something Iranian leadership may refuse to accept. So now the Pentagon faces an enormous gamble by publicly announcing that American forces will protect shipping traffic. Washington has effectively thrown down a challenge to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The message is unmistakable. Test us if you dare. The danger, however, is that Iran might do exactly that. Already, reports have surfaced of confrontations involving fast attack craft near escort operations. U.S. helicopters and naval forces have allegedly intervened to neutralize threats before they could approach commercial vessels. Each encounter inches both nations closer to the edge, and while officials describe these incidents as isolated or manageable, military planners know the truth. Repeated close contact encounters dramatically increase the risk of accidental war. At the center of this crisis sits another explosive issue: Congress and presidential war powers. For weeks, political pressure has been building inside Washington over whether the administration would eventually need congressional authorization to continue military operations connected to the conflict. Many lawmakers viewed May 1st as a critical deadline under the War Powers Resolution, but Hegseth introduced a controversial new argument. According to the Pentagon, because the ceasefire technically remains active, the War Powers clock has effectively stopped ticking. That statement immediately ignited outrage among critics who believe the administration may be attempting to preserve maximum military flexibility without formal congressional approval. In other words, the White House appears to be saying this: the war is paused, but operational authority remains ready to restart instantly if necessary. That revelation sent political shockwaves through Washington because it suggests the administration believes it can resume major combat operations at any moment if President Trump decides diplomacy has failed. And according to Hegseth, Iran knows it. The president retains the opportunity and the capabilities, he warned during the briefing. Those words were not accidental. They were a message, not only to Tehran, but to the entire world. America's military machinery remains loaded and prepared. Meanwhile, global markets are watching every development with growing anxiety. Even the hint of instability in the Strait of Hormuz sends tremors through energy markets because the consequences of disruption would be enormous. Tankers trapped, oil shipments delayed, prices surging, supply chains collapsing. Asian economies in particular depend heavily on energy flowing through those waters. That is why nations across the region are now facing enormous pressure to decide whether they will support U.S. maritime security operations. But many governments remain hesitant. Why? Because joining the mission could make them targets. No nation wants to sail directly into a confrontation zone unless absolutely certain American forces can maintain control. And despite Washington's confidence, nobody truly knows how Iran will respond if tensions intensify further. That uncertainty hangs over every ship entering the strait. Every captain knows it, every sailor feels it, every intelligence agency is tracking it hour by hour. The Pentagon insists the operation is working. Officials pointed to successful transits by US protected ships as proof that commerce can continue safely. But analysts caution that isolated successes do not guarantee long-term stability. The real test has not yet arrived. Can hundreds of ships move safely through the region every single day under constant threat? Can American forces sustain such an operation indefinitely without provoking direct escalation? Can Iran resist the temptation to retaliate more aggressively? At this moment, nobody can answer those questions. And perhaps most unsettling of all is the possibility that both sides are deliberately engaging in strategic ambiguity. Washington says the ceasefire remains alive while simultaneously expanding military operations. Iran signals restraint while permitting actions that raise tensions. Both governments appear trapped between diplomacy and confrontation, unable to fully commit to either. That creates the perfect conditions for disaster, because ambiguity breeds miscalculation, and miscalculation starts wars. Behind closed doors, intelligence officials are almost certainly gaming out nightmare scenarios right now. What happens if a tanker is hit? What happens if American sailors are killed? What happens if Iran attempts to mine shipping lanes? What happens if regional militias launch attacks against US bases? Each scenario carries the potential for rapid escalation across multiple countries. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Iraq, Israel, Lebanon, Syria. The entire region sits connected like a line of gasoline waiting for a spark. Yet publicly, officials continue using carefully controlled language designed to calm panic. Temporary mission, defensive operation, ceasefire intact, but the military build-up unfolding